For the last decade, the design sprint was the gold standard for production teams. Google used it, Slack used it, and there are literally entire certification programs built around it. But the whole process was built around the assumption that turning an idea into something real and testable takes a ton of time. And the thing is, that assumption doesn't hold true anymore. So in this video, I'm going to show you what's replaced the traditional 5-day design sprint and how teams are now going from idea to tested prototype in just hours. So let's get into it. Why everyone used design sprints. So if you've worked in production, you've probably heard of the design sprint, a 5-day process where a team goes from problem to tested prototype in 1 week. You sketch solutions, decide on a direction, build a prototype, and test it with real users, all within 5 structured days. And the reason every product team loved it is because it solved the thing that was burning months of time and resources. Before the sprint existed, teams would go through this cycle that just dragged on forever. Someone has an idea, then a designer would go and mock it up, the team would review it, have some other ideas, then the designer would go back and revise it, and this loop would repeat for weeks. A lot of the time, teams would get so deep into building that they'd never actually put any of it in front of users, so they'd launch without knowing if anyone even wanted the thing. But the sprint cut through all of that by forcing the team to go from problem to tested solution in only 5 days, which meant you'd either fail fast and save months of wasted work, or move forward, knowing real users validated this concept. That's why companies like Google, Slack, and Lego all adopted it, because it gave product teams a repeatable way to make decisions without gambling months on untested assumptions. Where all the time went. Now, 5 days sounds fast compared to months of going back and forth, but when you actually break down where the time went, most of it was spent making things. The thinking and testing parts of the sprint were actually quick. The team could align on a problem and test with users in a matter of hours, but getting ideas out of people's heads and into something you could actually look at and evaluate, that's where everything slowed down. The sketching phase was a good example of this, because it relied entirely on each person's ability to draw. Tuesday was all about putting solutions onto paper, and if someone had a great idea but couldn't sketch it clearly, that idea would usually get passed over. The team would end up making decisions based on rough, hand-drawn wireframes, and since every sketch was anonymized so no one could explain their thinking, the clarity of the drawing was basically the only thing people had to judge. So people who could draw, well, they had an outsized advantage over everyone else, regardless of whose idea was actually better. But the thing that really slowed everything down was prototyping, which took an entire day on its own. Thursday was completely dedicated to one thing: turning the winning concept into a prototype realistic enough to put in front of users the next day. That meant you need skilled designers heads down for a full day building something that looked and felt like a real product. And if something needed to change midday, or the team realized the storyboard wasn't quite right, well, there was no room to start over because all building had to stop by the end of the day. The whole sprint couldn't move any faster than that single day of construction. So the 5-day timeline wasn't really 5 days of thinking. It was 5 days because making things by hand can only go so fast. How AI compressed the entire sprint. So what happens when you take the parts that used to eat up most of the week and compress them down to minutes? Well, that's exactly what AI design tools have done to this process. The thinking, the deciding, and the testing were always fast. They just had to sit and wait while someone built the thing. Now the building is fast too, which means the entire timeline collapses. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. So let's say a team has an idea for a fitness tracking app and they need to go and get something testable as quickly as possible. I'm going to use an AI design tool called Flowstep to show you how fast that can happen now. So Flowstep is built around an infinite canvas. You can generate real editable product UI just by typing what you want. And the canvas lets you spread everything out and compare designs side by side, which is perfect when you're exploring multiple directions at once. So I'm typing in a prompt describing the fitness app dashboard that we need. And there it is, a full UI generated from that one prompt. This is real design too, not just an image. These are actual editable components components on the canvas. In the old sprint, getting to this point would have been someone's entire Tuesday afternoon of sketching on paper. By the way, if you want to try Flowstep for free, I'll leave a link to it in the top of the description down below. Now, in a real sprint, the team would need to see the full user journey, not just one screen. So I'm asking Flowstep to generate the complete onboarding flow. And we've got multiple screens generated in seconds, all with the same design language. We've got account creation, fitness goal selection, a success screen, and it's all consistent across every screen. Mocking all of this up by hand would have taken hours, and we've got it without drawing a single wireframe. Once the team is aligned on the design, you can move it straight into your existing workflow. I'll select the screens, copy them, switch over to Figma and paste. And these aren't images, these are real editable Figma layers. No plugin needed, no extension, you literally just copy and paste, which means from here, your team can keep refining in Figma the same way they already do. And if you want to test concepts quickly with users, you can also share that Flowstep file. This comes in handy during design sprints. And if your team has developers ready to build, Flowstep also exports clean code. Everything it generated is one-to-one with code, so developers aren't guessing from a static mockup. They are getting the actual usable components that they can work with. So let's just take a moment to think about what actually happened there. We went from a blank canvas to a full product concept with multiple screens, consistent design, real Figma layers, and exportable code, all in a few minutes. That covers ideation, iteration, and prototyping, the 3 phases that used to take up most of a sprint week. And here's what's really important to understand. Teams are already doing this right now. While some teams are still blocking off Monday through Friday to validate one idea, other teams are running through this same process in a single afternoon. If you're still spending 5 days to get to tested prototype, you are up against product teams who are testing 5 ideas in that same time frame. And every month, these tools get faster and more capable, which means that gap in speed keeps growing. What teams should actually do now? Now, to be clear, the design sprint didn't become the standard because of the 5-day timeline. It became the standard because of the principles behind it. Validate before you build. Test with real users before you commit real resources. And get your team aligned by looking at something tangible together instead of just describing ideas back and forth. Those principles are still right. The 5-day format is just the part that's now long gone. So the move now is to keep the thinking and drop the waiting. Use AI to generate concepts in minutes instead of spending a day sketching on paper. Iterate by prompting changes instead of redesigning from scratch. Get a testable prototype together in the same session where the idea came up, instead of blocking off an entire day just for building. And then spend your time on the part that actually matters, which is putting it in front of real users and seeing how they respond. Teams that do this are learning way faster because they're testing more ideas in less time and catching bad ones before any real resources go into building them. So if you want to try this workflow for yourself, Flowstep will be the top link in the description and you can start for free. So again, click the first link below to get started with Flowstep for free. And if you want to know more about all the best AI tools for UI and UX design, check out this video next.